Yo, what's good everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be breaking down some of my favorite cash game plays for this Week 3 NFL DraftKings main slate. What we'll do is go position by position, talking about the plays that are sticking out to me. I got a few honorable mentions listed as well, and then we're going to wrap up the video with a low-priced option or sub 4K wide receiver play. With that being said, let's dive into my spreadsheet here. Alright, so we're going to kick things off here in the spreadsheet like we always do. In the top left-hand corner there with the highest implied game totals. There's a lot to love about this slate in general this week. A lot of really good games to target and a lot of really good players to target, especially on the tournament side of things. I love this slate from a GPP perspective, and I will have my tournament video out on Saturday morning, so stay tuned for that. But a lot of these games do have a lot of high scoring potential, so a lot of intrigue there. And then I got the highest implied team totals listed behind me there. You can kind of use that as a reference point as I'm going through my favorite cash plays. With that being said, I'm going to keep it simple at the quarterback position with my cash lineup this week. It's Josh Allen for me or Jalen Hurts. Now, I'll mention this right away. If you feel the need to save money at the quarterback position, Carson Wentz kind of stuck out to me, but that Philly defense looked awesome on Monday night against Minnesota, so I don't know if I'm going to go there in cash. I think it's worth looking at, but more of a tournament play for me. And then Marcus Mariota of the Atlanta Falcons going against Seattle. I don't mind that at 5.5K. He has been running the ball throughout the first 2 weeks and hasn't been horrible by any means. So if I needed to save the money, that's where I'd go, but Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts make sense to me. They're probably going to be the two most popular quarterbacks in cash lineups this week, but I really don't worry about that when it comes to my cash lineup. I want the safest floor with a really high upside, and that's what both of these guys offer here, especially with their pass rushing combo. We've seen both these guys dominate here throughout the first 2 weeks, and no reason to think they can't do that in Week 3. Obviously, if I can find that extra $600, I want to get up to Josh Allen, but I have no problem playing Jalen Hurts against the Washington Commanders. Now, moving over here to the running backs, and I'll mention this right away, and I'll probably mention this most weeks. If you want to play Jonathan Taylor and Christian McCaffrey in your cash lineup, there is no problem with that whatsoever. They're the best two fantasy running backs in football right now, but they're also very expensive most weeks, so I don't mind kind of pivoting off of that here this week. I think Dalvin Cook and even Joe Mixon are really nice in the upper 7K range. I went with Dalvin Cook as my main running back towards the top tier, if that makes sense. But I think Mixon is absolutely okay against the Jets. He actually leads the entire NFL at the running back position with 59 touches through 2 weeks. So the volume is absolutely there and should be once again in Week 3. But I'm going to go with the squeaky wheel narrative here in Dalvin Cook. Great matchup at home against the Detroit Lions, and Minnesota knows they need to get this guy more involved. He was fine in Week 1, played fine against Green Bay, but I think he had 6 rushing attempts against the Philadelphia Eagles on Monday night, and that's just not enough. He's going to get heavily used here in this game, I believe that, and he's been heavily used in the passing game throughout the first 2 weeks as well, so he's kind of game script proof. Even if the Vikings are losing in this game to Detroit, we should see him used in the passing game, and I like that price there, $7,900. You guys know that I shoot for 3x value in my cash lineup. That's about 24 DraftKings points, and he hasn't done that yet this year, but I think this is a perfect spot for him to get right. Next, I got Leonard Fournette there, and basically this just comes down to volume. So far he's averaging about 25.5 touches per game, carries and targets throughout the first 2 weeks, and I just don't foresee that going down here in Week 3, especially considering that the Bucs are going to be without Mike Evans. He's suspended this week. Chris Godwin has already been listed as out. Julio's questionable. You can kind of see that in the notes in the bottom right-hand corner when I talk about Brashad Perriman, but Lenny Fournette should be another guy locked into 20-plus touches this week, and as great as that Green Bay defense should be, they haven't been spectacular throughout the first 2 weeks here, and Lenny's a guy that gets used in the passing game as well, and so I like him at that price of $6,500. And then I got David Montgomery there of the Chicago Bears, and look everyone, I'll be the first to say it, I'm not thrilled about rostering anybody on this Chicago offense, But considering the matchup here and the price at $5,900, I do think that David Montgomery is a cash game consideration, and actually looking at some of the projected ownership this week, he is projecting to be very popular. So kind of eases some of my concerns there. But I do like the matchup at home here against the Texans, who have not looked very good against the run throughout the first 2 weeks of the season. And they're actually allowing the highest rush success rate throughout the first 2 weeks here, allowing opposing running backs to average close to 5 yards per carry. Now, I try not to get too carried away with the yards per carry statistic, especially early on in the season, but needless to say, Monty does look to have a good matchup here at home against this Texans defense. Now, I don't mind Miles Sanders either at $5,500. The volume has been there for him throughout the first 2 weeks of the year here, but my only concern is I wouldn't want to play Jalen Hurts and Sanders in the same lineup because they kind of steal work from one another, especially when they get towards the goal line. And if I'm playing Jalen Hurts, I want him to run the ball in, and vice versa. If I'm playing Sanders, I want Sanders to run the ball in. So I wouldn't play them together in cash, but I think we can consider Sanders there. And keep an eye on the Raiders running back situation. Actually, as I was just about to record this, news is that Josh Jacobs did not travel with the team this week to Tennessee. He very well could tomorrow, but something to keep an eye on there. Now, folks, before we dive into the wide receivers here, if you could take 10 seconds to like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. I got a lot of football content coming your way this season, and for those of you who play NHL DFS or do some hockey betting, I'm going to have a lot of content surrounded around that as well. We're just a few weeks away from puck drop, but I appreciate y'all. Let's get into these wide receivers. And then we got the wide receivers here. There's always a lot to love about the wide receiver position. You want to go with Cooper Kupp, you want to go with Justin Jefferson, I absolutely think that's fine. But Stephon Diggs is way too cheap here, and maybe not way too cheap, but he should be at least $8,500. But he's getting that discount because he played on Monday night where he absolutely balled out. You know, looking at the stats here throughout the first 2 weeks of the season, he leads all wide receivers in touchdowns with 4. He's second in the league in receiving yards behind Tyreek Hill, and third in the league in receptions. And he's not even being priced near the top like he should be. And I don't mind the matchup here against Miami. There's definitely some shootout potential in this game. In fact, it's actually leading this main slate with the highest implied total of 53 points. So if I can get Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs in my cash lineup, even better. You get that correlation between the two, but I just think Diggs is too cheap here in general at $7,700. Next, I got Amon-Ra St. Brown there of the Detroit Lions, and man, we need to start putting some respect on this guy's name. He is absolutely balling out to start the year, and that's how he finished the 2021 season where he was a rookie. It seems like this guy is only getting better with each and every week, and you can see in the notes there, he now has 8 straight games with 8+ catches and 10+ targets. Volume is not an issue for this guy, and he's playing in another game that has a really high implied total, actually second on this main slate, against the Minnesota Vikings, so definitely some shootout potential there. And those cornerbacks did not look great against Philadelphia on Monday night for Minnesota. I definitely think that St. Brown can win those matchups. I then got Michael Pittman Jr. there of the Indianapolis Colts. Look like he's good to go after missing week 2 with a quad injury. I still like the price here at $6,900, even though that has gone up $1,400 from his price in week 1. But this is another guy who should see a lot of volume here in this game against the Kansas City Chiefs, playing indoors, and I don't mind the matchup, but even more so, kind of love the game script here for him. I just don't foresee Indianapolis playing with a lead in this game, and I guess I could be wrong there. Maybe I need to have a tournament lineup that kind of suggests otherwise, but Kansas City just looks too good here to start the season, as we kind of expected, and I foresee the Colts playing from behind in this game, needing to throw the ball quite a bit, and Pittman should see a majority of those targets. And then another guy who's just been force-fed targets here to start the season is Curtis Samuel, and while his price continues to go up here throughout the first 2 weeks, I still like him here at $5,100. He leads this entire Commanders team with a 27% target share throughout the first 2 weeks, seeing a 74% completion rate, so I really like that. and he scored a touchdown in each of the first 2 games, so they're getting him involved in the red zone and towards the goal line. If he keeps playing like this, he's going to be priced in the 6K range before we know it, and this is another game where the Commanders should be playing from behind against the Philadelphia Eagles to where they need to throw the ball a little bit more. Now, I got a couple of honorable mentions there. Again, Cooper Kupp, I don't need to convince anybody to play that guy. Back-to-back weeks with 34 plus DraftKings points. It's just really hard to fit him in a lineup at $10,000, but if you're going to do it, it makes sense to do it in your cash lineup, not a tournament lineup, and I'll kind of explain that tomorrow in my tournament video, but needless to say, week 2 was a great example of why someone like Cooper Kupp is almost too expensive in tournaments, because you got guys in the 5, 6, 7K range who can dominate and smash their value. For example, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and St. Brown from last week. So I don't love playing Kupp in tournaments. I think he's a consideration, obviously, in cash games. I don't know if I'm going to have the money to get there. And then Greg Dortch, it does not look like Rondale Moore is going to play this week. I mentioned in my first look video on Tuesday that Rondale Moore might play, and I like him in the 3K range, but word is he's going to be out. So I wouldn't mind going back to Dortch here, playing in the slot for Arizona for the 3rd consecutive week. And then I got a couple of tight ends here, and I foresee myself spending down at this position as well as the defensive position this week in my cash lineup, considering I want to spend up at quarterback, get one of those top-tier running backs, and probably a top-tier wide receiver as well. Irv Smith is going to be my go-to here unless I really need that extra $200. I don't mind Juwan Johnson of the New Orleans Saints. He's seen a decent amount of targets throughout the first 2 weeks. But Irv Smith here, if he didn't play on Monday night, he'd probably be priced closer to $4,000, maybe even $4,500. So I'm going to take that massive discount. He saw 8 targets in that game, finished with 5 catches, 36 receiving yards, and scored a touchdown. And he should have scored 2 touchdowns in that game. Literally dropped a wide open, long touchdown that hit him right in the hands. It was very frustrating to watch if you were playing Irv Smith in your showdown lineups. But needless to say, had himself a decent night and just too cheap here at $3,100, especially considering the matchup at home against Detroit. Now, just want to take a quick minute to talk about one of the sponsors on this channel, Lucra. If you have not downloaded Lucra, it is completely free to get started. I'm actually going to throw a QR code up on the screen here right now. You can scan this with your phone. It's going to download the app, and once it does that, it's going to give you my referral code, which is GRIFF, GRIFF, and give you $25 in free play money. Now, you can use that free play money to compete against anybody, friends, family, or someone random, and if you win those contests, you'll actually see that free play money convert to real cash. So if you win enough of your contests with that free play money, you might legit never have to deposit a single dollar on Lucra. You can just build a bankroll from there. So again, I'll throw that QR code up on the screen one more time. You can scan this with your phone here. It'll download the app, include my referral code GRIFF, GRIFF, and give you that $25 in free play money. And then we got the defenses here. You guys know the deal when it comes to my cash lineup. I just look for a defense in the 2K range that has a decent matchup. I actually really like the defenses from a tournament perspective this week, and again, I'll touch on that in my video tomorrow, but from a cash game perspective, I don't mind spending a little extra for the Eagles. Play Carson Wentz here this week, who isn't afraid to turn the ball over. I know he's been great from a fantasy perspective throughout the first 2 weeks, but I believe he's also got 4 interceptions already. So yeah, don't mind the Eagles. They looked really good on Monday night against Minnesota. Yet the Falcons here have actually played really well in the first 2 weeks as well. They have the Seattle Seahawks this week. Geno Smith, I don't mind that matchup. And then we got the Carolina Panthers playing famous Jameis, who can put up fantasy points himself like Carson Wentz, but we all know that he isn't afraid to turn the ball over or take sacks. So yeah, I'm fine with any one of these defenses here in the 2K range. Bucks against Aaron Rodgers is certainly interesting, probably more of a tournament play for me, but that Green Bay wide receiver core is just decimated right now. And then if you do want to punt, I don't mind the lines there at $2,200 playing Minnesota. If Kirk Cousins plays anything like he did on Monday night this Sunday, the Lions could be a nice play at that price. And as always, going to wrap up the spreadsheet here with a low-priced option or sub-4K wide receiver play. This week I went with Brashad Perriman of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I kind of talked about the scenario when I was going through Leonard Fournette. No Mike Evans this week, no Chris Godwin for the Buccaneers. Sounds like Julio's going to be a game-time decision, making Brashad Perriman the number 1 or number 2 wide receiver in this offense. Now, Russell Gage is listed as questionable. I do think that he's going to play, and could be a consideration at $4,700. But I kind of like the $800 in price savings you get between those two for two guys that very well could see the same amount of volume. So it does come down to the price here at $3,900, and the Buccaneers just don't have many options to throw the ball to, but Brashad Perriman will be one of those guys. All right, everyone, that is going to wrap up this video here for today. As always, thank y'all for taking the time out of your day to watch the content here on this channel. If you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. I got another video coming out on Saturday morning, breaking down some of my favorite tournament plays for this Week 3 DraftKings main slate as well, so make sure you stay tuned for that. But in the meantime here, folks, let's have ourselves a great weekend. I'm out of here.